In the cold dark of space, near a dying red star, thousands of alien warships floated like steel giants. Their hulls glowed gold and blue, reflecting the light of the fading sun. It was not a battle. It was a parade, a show of power. This was the Zarth Dominion, the strongest empire in the known galaxy. Their warships had crushed hundreds of worlds, burned entire moons, and forced thousands of species to kneel. Across alien colonies, citizens watched the broadcast on massive screens. They cheered as the Zarth fleet moved in perfect formation, their banners glowing with pride. Admiral Cathor, commander of the Dominion's Grand Fleet, stood on the bridge of his flagship Oblivion's Wrath. His long silver armor reflected the light of the star. His voice was deep and filled with pride. "Let the galaxy see," Cathor said. "No one can stand against us." His officers smiled. They had heard the same words 1,000 times before. Every time they invaded, every time they conquered, it ended the same way, with victory. Then someone at the control deck frowned. "Admiral," said the sensor officer, his voice uncertain. "I'm detecting something." Cathor turned irritated. "What kind of something?" "A signal," the officer replied. "Weak, fading in and out. It's coming from the edge of the system." Cathor waved his hand. "Ignore it. Probably an old satellite or wreckage." But the signal grew stronger. It pulsed in a strange pattern, not like any known communication. Every few seconds, a short, sharp tone echoed through their systems. The technician tried to decode it. "It's not any known alien language, Admiral. But it feels familiar." Cathor's second-in-command, a tall alien with dark red eyes, smirked. "Maybe some lost species trying to call for help." But then the signal changed. The screen flashed with a faint line of symbols. Old human characters. Cathor frowned. "Human." He laughed. "Impossible. Humanity died centuries ago. Their colonies were destroyed before our grandfathers were born." His crew laughed with him. The old stories of humans were considered myths now, tales about a violent, unpredictable race that vanished after their last war. But then the signal stabilized. A visual appeared on the screen. A small ship, no markings, no heat signature, drifting slowly toward them. It was black and silent, shaped like a dagger, but its surface shimmered like water. Cathor narrowed his eyes. "What is that?" The scanning officer's voice trembled. "No identification code. No life signs. It's heading straight for us." "Destroy it," Cathor ordered. "One shot." The cannons of the Dominion flagship powered up. Bright blue energy built inside massive turrets. The sound of charging weapons filled the bridge. But before they could fire, every system went dark. The lights flickered once, then died. Engines shut down. Communication screens turned to static. Even the sound of the star outside vanished, replaced by total silence. "Report," Cathor roared. "Power failure across all ships," shouted the engineer. "All systems offline, even backups." Cathor turned to the screen. The small ship was now closer. Much closer. It didn't move fast, it simply appeared nearer, like space itself was bending around it. "Scan it," Cathor shouted. The officer tried, but the scanner screamed and overloaded. Sparks burst from the control panels. The small ship stopped. It floated right in front of the Dominion's flagship. Then for the first time it spoke. A voice echoed through every ship in the fleet. Calm, cold, human. "This is a warning. Turn back." No one moved. The bridge was silent. Every alien officer stared at the screen in shock. Then Cathor laughed, a deep, arrogant laugh that filled the room. "A warning? From a ghost." He waved his hand. "Lock weapons again. Destroy it." The crew tried to obey. But before the weapons could recharge, the voice spoke again. "You were told." And then it happened. The stars outside began to bend. Space twisted and rippled like liquid. A burst of white light exploded from the small ship. No sound, no heat, just light. Every sensor overloaded. Every system screamed. The Dominion fleet, once proud and powerful, floated helplessly as their ships began to drift out of formation. When the light faded, the small ship was gone. The Dominion ship's power slowly returned, but the signal, that strange, pulsing tone, remained. It echoed across every monitor, repeating the same pattern. One of the younger officers whispered, voice trembling, "Admiral, that signal. It's human." Cathor stared at the empty space where the small ship had vanished. His claws tightened on the edge of his chair. "Find it," he said coldly. "I don't care what it takes. Find that ship." He turned his gaze toward the dying star, eyes burning with pride and anger. "The humans are gone," he muttered. "And if they are not, we will finish what our ancestors started." But deep in the darkness beyond the dying star, something moved, unseen, silent, watching. And for the first time in 1,000 years, the galaxy began to whisper a name it had long forgotten. Humans. The Zarth Dominion's grand parade had turned into silence. The entire fleet hung in space like frozen statues. Engineers worked without rest, trying to understand what had just happened. Admiral Cathor stood at the command deck, his eyes fixed on the main screen. The small black ship, the one that had spoken in that strange human voice, was gone. No trace. No debris. No radiation. It was as if the ship had never existed. But one thing remained, the signal. A steady pulse repeating through every ship's comms. Beep, beep, beep. It played again and again. "What is this?" Cathor growled. The chief engineer stepped forward. "Admiral, the signal is not from outside. It's inside our systems. It's rewriting our data files." Cathor's claws tightened on the edge of his chair. "You're telling me we've been hacked?" "Yes, sir," the engineer replied. "But not by any code I've ever seen. Too clean. Too advanced." Across the bridge, screens flickered. The ship's log opened on its own, and symbols started to appear, old Terran characters. A translation flashed on screen. "We told you to turn back." No one spoke. Even the sound of the engines felt distant. Finally, Cathor broke the silence. "Gather the science fleet. I want every trace of that signal tracked. I want to know where it came from." Hours later, across hundreds of ships, alien scientists worked furiously. They analyzed energy waves, quantum signatures, and subspace distortions. All results pointed to one conclusion: the signal was human in origin. But that couldn't be true. The Zarth Dominion had destroyed Earth over 500 years ago. Every record said the humans were extinct. No colonies, no survivors, no ships. Nothing. Yet here it was, a human signal, alive and active. Some of the younger officers began whispering among themselves. Maybe the humans returned. Maybe the old stories were real. Maybe they built something we don't understand. Cathor ignored them, but deep inside, unease grew in his mind. The fleet began moving again, scanning the outer systems near the dying star. Days passed. Nothing was found. The mysterious ship had vanished without a trace. Then one of the scout ships sent a message, faint but clear. "Admiral, we found it." Cathor's heart pounded. "Where?" The transmission was weak and full of static, but the voice of the scout captain came through. "Edge of the system, near the asteroid belt. The ship is here, but it's not alone." "Not alone," Cathor repeated. "What do you mean?" But before the scout could respond, the transmission cut off. The screen went black. Then came that same sound again, beep, beep, beep. Cathor turned to his officers. "Open a channel to the entire fleet. Now." Minutes later, hundreds of alien captains appeared on holographic screens. Their faces showed fear and confusion. Cathor raised his voice. "This is nothing but human tricks. Ancient ghosts. Do not be afraid. We are the Zarth Dominion. We will burn whatever remains of their machines." The commanders saluted and cut the channel. Within the hour, Cathor ordered 20 scout fleets to spread through nearby systems. They would search for any sign of human activity. But one by one, the scout fleets went silent. First Fleet 12 stopped responding. Then Fleet 9. Then Fleet 17. Each time they received one final transmission before the silence. The same whisper, cold and human. "You were warned." Soon panic began to spread. The officers on Cathor's ship spoke in low voices, afraid even to raise their eyes. The once proud fleet was now surrounded by invisible fear. Cathor slammed his hand on the console. "Enough. We are not running from shadows. We move toward the solar system." The officer beside him gasped. "Admiral, you mean?" "Yes," Cathor said. "Earth. I will see what's left of their world with my own eyes." The bridge fell silent. Even the hum of the ship seemed to pause for a moment. It was forbidden to go near the old human system. Every empire that had tried before had disappeared. But Cathor didn't care. He wanted answers. He wanted revenge. The journey through the dark void took weeks. The Zarth Dominion fleet passed broken planets, burned asteroids and dead moons. No light, no signals, nothing alive. But the deeper they went, the stranger space became. Sensors began to flicker. Energy readings jumped for no reason. Sometimes shadows appeared outside the ships, moving shapes that sensors could not track. One pilot swore he saw something floating outside the hull. When he turned the lights toward it, there was nothing there. Finally, they reached the border of the solar system. The same place where humans had once ruled the stars. Cathor stared at the dark space ahead. No defenses, no colonies, he muttered. So this is what's left of humanity. Dust. But just as he said those words, alarms screamed across the ship. "Admiral," the officer shouted. "Unknown objects detected near the edge of the system. Thousands of them." "Show me," Cathor ordered. The screen zoomed in. Shapes were moving near the orbit of Neptune. At first they looked like asteroids, but they were too organized, too perfect. Cathor frowned. "Magnify." The image sharpened. What they saw froze everyone in place. It was a fleet. Huge ships, black and silent, hidden in the shadows of Neptune's blue glow. Cathor whispered almost to himself, "That can't be." The sensor officer's hands shook. "Admiral, they match the old records of human dreadnoughts. But these are bigger." The comms crackled suddenly. A faint human voice spoke through the static, cold and clear. "You were told to turn back." Then every screen went dark again. Cathor stood frozen, the color draining from his face. Around him, the crew whispered in terror. The signal was no longer just noise. It was a warning. And it came from right inside the solar system. V. The Zarth Dominion fleet floated at the edge of the solar system, its ships spread like a metal storm across the dark. Every commander, every pilot, every sensor operator stared at the blue glow of Neptune ahead, and the shadows moving near it. At first they thought the strange shapes were asteroids. But the patterns were too perfect, the lines too straight. They were not rocks. They were ships. Cathor stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Oblivion's Wrath, his claws tapping against the command rail. His voice was low and cold. "Confirm their structure." The sensor officer hesitated. "Admiral, we ran 3 scans. They are ships. But they do not match any known design. The hulls reflect no energy. It's like they are eating the light around them." Cathor narrowed his eyes. "Human ships." The officer swallowed hard. "Yes, Admiral. But their readings are impossible. Each one carries a power source larger than an entire Dominion carrier." The bridge fell silent. Cathor looked through the viewport. The massive planet Neptune shimmered faintly in the distance, its blue surface calm and quiet. And yet, behind that calm, something ancient was waking up. One of the smaller Zarth cruisers moved forward. Its captain, eager to impress Cathor, opened the fleet channel. "This is Captain Rilan of the ship Vorax. We are moving closer to investigate. Probably old human scrap left behind." Cathor didn't stop him. "Very well, Captain. But keep your shields up." The Vorax advanced through the darkness, its engines humming softly. The rest of the fleet watched through long-range sensors. For a few moments, everything was quiet. Then static filled the comms. "Admiral." Rilan's voice came through, broken and filled with panic. "We are detecting." The message cut off. The Vorax disappeared from every screen. No explosion. No wreckage. Just gone. "Find it," Cathor shouted. The officers scrambled. "We're scanning the area, Admiral. No debris, no escape pods, nothing. It's as if it was never there." Cathor's heart pounded. His anger was burning into fear. How can an entire cruiser vanish? Then the lights dimmed. The ship's computer flickered. A voice echoed across every screen, calm, human, and close. "We told you to turn back." Every ship in the fleet heard it. Some officers screamed. Others froze. Cathor slammed his fist on the console. "Enough games. Track that signal. Fire at its source." The Zarth fleet unleashed its power. Thousands of plasma beams lit the darkness. Torpedoes streaked across space like blue lightning, aimed straight at the shadows behind Neptune. For a moment, it looked like victory. The sky exploded with color. But then, the light bent. The torpedoes vanished mid-flight, swallowed by something invisible. The plasma blasts curved away, drawn into a dark void that shimmered for a second, then vanished. Cathor's second-in-command gasped. "Admiral, the weapons, they just disappeared." Cathor clenched his teeth. "No. They were taken." Suddenly the sensors screamed. "New contacts," shouted an officer. Multiple ships, no hundreds, emerging from the shadows. On the main screen they appeared. Black ships, shaped like spears with no visible engines. Each one moved silently, no light, no sound. But the moment they appeared, every Zarth ship's system flickered again, as if reality itself shook. Cathor whispered, "So the stories were true. These were human dreadnoughts, the Ghost Fleet. They had no broadcasts, no signals, only presence. Their hulls shimmered like liquid metal, absorbing every ray of light. They moved slowly like predators that didn't need to rush. Open communications. Cathar ordered. The channel crackled then went dead. No response, Admiral. They're jamming everything. Cathar turned to his gunnery officer. Prepare all cannons. Fire at will. The Dominion fleet opened fire again, filling space with roaring energy. But the human ships didn't move. The blast struck their hulls and disappeared without a sound. No damage. No shields. Just silence. Then the human ships responded. A single beam of light shot from one of the black dreadnoughts. It was thin, almost harmless looking. It touched one Zarth cruiser, and the ship simply ceased to exist. No explosion, no debris. Gone. Another beam. Another ship erased. In seconds, 10 Dominion warships were gone. The fleet broke formation, commanders shouting in panic. Retreat. Retreat now, someone yelled. Cathar slammed his fist down. Hold the line. Fire everything. But it was useless. Every weapon turned against the void. The human ships advanced without sound or heat. Their presence alone bent gravity around them. Then, the largest human ship appeared from behind Neptune. It was massive, larger than a moon, blacker than space itself. Its surface rippled like dark water. Across its hull, faint letters glowed for the first time in centuries. USS Eclipse. Cathar stared speechless. Eclipse. That was the name of their last warship before the fall. The human ship moved forward slowly, no visible engines, no sound. The Zarth Dominion's most powerful fleet was now trapped, surrounded, helpless. A voice came through the comms, the same voice from before, calm and cold. You came to finish what your ancestors started. Now we finish what we started. And then, light. White light filled the entire region. Every Zarth ship's system crashed. The dying red star nearby dimmed, its energy drained by the wave. When the light faded, half of the Dominion fleet was gone. Only silence remained. Cathar stood frozen. Around him, officers whispered in terror. What are they, Admiral? One asked softly. Cathar's eyes were wide. His voice cracked as he spoke. They are humans. But not as we knew them. He turned toward the window, watching the dark fleet drifting near Neptune like silent gods. They were never gone, he whispered. They were waiting. As the Dominion ships limped away from the battlefield, broken and scattered, one last transmission played across their systems. It was the same calm human voice, but this time, it sounded almost merciful. You have seen enough. Leave our system, and never return. Then all human ships disappeared, as if swallowed by the void. Cathar looked into the darkness, trembling. For the first time in his life he felt fear. The war he had wanted had already begun, and the enemy he thought extinct was now watching. The remains of the mighty Zarth Dominion fleet drifted in silence. The once proud armada, thousands of warships strong, was now broken and scattered like dust across the edge of the solar system. Inside his flagship Oblivion's Wrath, Admiral Cathar stared at the shattered monitors. Sparks flew from damaged panels. The air smelled of smoke and fear. No one dared to speak. Outside, the cold blue glow of Neptune pulsed quietly, calm, peaceful, and terrifying. Cathar finally spoke, his voice low and filled with anger. Status report. 70% of the fleet destroyed, Admiral, said the comms officer, voice trembling. All long-range sensors are blind. Energy cores unstable. We can't contact Central Command. Cathar clenched his jaw. And the humans? The officer hesitated. Gone, sir. No visual, no signal, no trace. Cathar turned toward the dark window, where Neptune's icy clouds shimmered faintly. Gone, he whispered. Or hiding. He looked at his officers. They didn't kill us all. They let us live. They want us to follow them. Hours later, the fleet began scanning Neptune's shadow zone, a vast, dark region behind the planet where sunlight never reached. The readings were strange. Gravity twisted unnaturally. Energy spikes flickered like heartbeats. Cathar's science officer frowned. Admiral, this is impossible. There's something massive inside Neptune's orbit, but it's invisible. It's like a hole in space. Cathar leaned forward. A base. Or something worse, the officer whispered. Cathar made his choice. We go in. Every officer looked at him in shock. Admiral, we can't, one protested. The magnetic field there is unstable. Our systems won't survive. Cathar's eyes burned with fury. Neither will our empire if we run. The humans humiliated us. We will find them, and destroy whatever is hiding in that shadow. The remaining ships formed into attack formation. Their engines burned bright as they entered the dark side of Neptune. At first there was only mist, blue fog and swirling magnetic storms. But as they pushed deeper, their sensors began to clear. And then they saw it. A vast structure emerged from the darkness, larger than any station, larger even than moons. It floated within the gas clouds, wrapped in black energy. An entire human fortress hidden inside Neptune's shadow. Its surface pulsed like living metal. Thousands of silent ships were docked around it, long, spear-like vessels, the same ones that had destroyed the Dominion fleet. Cathor's voice was barely a whisper. They built a city in the dark. His second-in-command shook his head in disbelief. How? How could they survive here for centuries without anyone knowing? No one had an answer. Suddenly, a light flickered from the station. A ripple of blue energy spread across space. All Zarth ships froze, engines dead, systems offline again. The human fortress began to awaken. Gigantic panels unfolded like wings. Beams of light shot out, scanning the entire Dominion fleet. One by one, alien ships began to glow faintly, trapped in some kind of invisible net. Cathor shouted, "Shields up! Weapons online!" But it was too late. The voice returned, calm, deep, human. "We told you not to come." The air on the bridge grew heavy. The temperature dropped. Every sound seemed distant. Cathor roared into the comms, "Who are you? Show yourself." For a moment there was silence. Then one of the human dreadnoughts, black and massive, detached from the fortress and drifted toward them. Its lights flickered on. And across its hull, glowing letters appeared once again. USS Eclipse. Cathor's heart froze. The human ship stopped right in front of Oblivion's Wrath. It dwarfed the alien flagship like a mountain shadowing an insect. Then the human voice spoke again, this time directed only to Cathor. "You brought your empire's pride to our graveyard. Now you'll learn why it's called that." Cathor snarled. "We are not afraid of you. You hide like ghosts. Face us." The human ship's lights dimmed for a second, then a face appeared on Cathor's screen, a human commander. His skin was pale, his eyes calm, his uniform marked with an ancient Earth insignia. He looked neither angry nor cruel. Just disappointed. "You don't understand," the human said softly. "We stayed silent for centuries. We watched your wars, your cruelty, your arrogance. But you brought your fire here." He paused. "Now we bring ours." The USS Eclipse moved slightly, and the space around it rippled. Invisible waves of energy swept across the Dominion fleet. Ships began to twist, their hulls bending as gravity distorted. The screams of dying crews filled the comms. One by one, Zarth ships exploded in white flashes, not from fire but from being erased by sheer force. Cathor's ship trembled violently. "Return fire. Fire everything we have." The cannons roared, launching a storm of plasma and missiles. The human dreadnought didn't move. Every shot disappeared before hitting it, dissolved into nothing. Then the human ship responded. A single pulse of light. Not a beam. Just a pulse. And instantly the entire space around Neptune went dark. Even the planet's blue glow faded. Cathor's officers screamed as their screens turned to static. The ship's systems crashed again. Only the human voice remained, echoing through the void. "You wanted to see our strength. Now you've seen it. Tell your empire humanity still lives." When power returned minutes later, the human fortress was gone. Neptune's shadow was empty once again. Half the Dominion ships were gone. The survivors drifted helplessly, engines broken, systems dead. Cathor sat in silence, breathing heavily. His claws shook for the first time in his life. His second-in-command spoke softly, "Admiral, what now?" Cathor stared into the darkness. "Now," he said slowly, "we return home. And we tell them what we saw." He turned away from the viewport, his voice trembling but proud. "Humanity is not gone," he said. "They are hiding in the dark, waiting." As the crippled fleet limped away from Neptune, the stars shimmered faintly. For a brief moment, a shadow crossed their path, a black ship, gliding silently, following them. The humans were not finished. The ghost fleet was watching. And the war that the galaxy never expected had just begun. Space trembled. The first human strike had erased half the Zarth fleet in seconds. What followed wasn't a battle, it was survival. Admiral Threx stood on the bridge of his flagship, Dominion's Glory, shaking with disbelief. Thousands of alien ships had vanished. Entire squadrons, gone, like dust swept from the stars. The air around him felt heavy. His officers stared at silent screens, afraid to speak. What weapon is that?" one officer whispered. Threx didn't answer. He didn't know. The energy readings from the human ship were beyond logic, beyond physics. The lone human vessel now floated quietly in the center of the wreckage. No movement. No second strike. It was as if the humans were waiting, watching. "Contact the remaining fleet," Threx ordered. "Form a perimeter around that ship. Don't engage until I say so." Thousands of remaining Zarth warships moved into formation, their engines glowing blue across the dark void. Suddenly, the human ship's signal blinked again. This time it wasn't a warning. It was a transmission, a voice calm and human. "This is Commander Rhea Stone of the Earth Defense Vanguard," it said. "You attacked our colonies. You burned our skies. Now you face the consequence." Her words echoed through every alien channel. And then silence. Fire. Threx shouted, unable to hold back his fear. The Zarth Armada unleashed everything: plasma cannons, antimatter torpedoes, and dark energy beams. The void turned white-hot with destruction. But the human ship didn't move. All weapons vanished before reaching it, swallowed by a shimmering distortion around the vessel. It looked like space itself bent and twisted around it, like reality didn't want to touch that ship. "Impossible?" one officer gasped. "No, not impossible," Threx whispered. "They've changed the laws of war." Then the human ship responded. A pulse of light rippled outward, slow at first, like the breath of a giant. Every alien screen flickered. Every sensor shut down. The fleet's communications died in a single wave. Ships began to drift, powerless, blind, silent. On the observation deck, Threx saw the light crawl across his ship's hull, peeling the armor layer by layer. It wasn't an explosion, it was erasure. The light touched matter and erased it completely, leaving nothing behind. "Pull us back," he screamed. "Retreat. All ships retreat." But the engines no longer responded. His officers screamed as their control panels melted into nothing. One by one, ships began to vanish, not destroyed but unmade. Far away, in a hidden human base orbiting Jupiter, Commander Rhea Stone watched the battle feed quietly. Behind her, other officers stood still, pale, silent. "It's working," one said softly. "Yes," Rhea replied. "But it shouldn't exist." The weapon they had used wasn't built for victory. It was meant for deterrence, something humans had sworn never to activate again. But after the Zarth burned Earth's colonies, there was no other choice. She closed her eyes. End transmission. Pull the ship back before it consumes more than the enemy. In the remains of the Zarth fleet, silence ruled. Only scattered debris and energy ghosts drifted through the dark. Admiral Threx's ship floated crippled, half of it gone. He looked out at the stars, where thousands of proud warships once stood, now reduced to dust. And then, through the static, one final human transmission reached his failing speakers. "This is what you made us become," the human voice said. "You called us dust. Now you've seen what our dust can do." The transmission ended. Threx fell to his knees. His pride, his empire, his war, all gone in a single breath of human vengeance. He looked at the dying star ahead, whispering, "They were supposed to be extinct." And somewhere in the distance, the human ship vanished into hyperspace, leaving behind only silence, light, and fear. The galaxy was silent. Thousands of star systems, once alive with chatter and movement, now held only shadows. The Zarth Dominion fleet was gone, reduced to fragments of metal and scattered energy drifting through the void. Entire worlds that had relied on the Dominion's protection were left trembling in fear, powerless and unguarded. On Earth, in a command center hidden deep beneath the planet's surface, humans watched the aftermath. Commander Rhea Stone stood before a vast holomap of the galaxy. Her uniform was simple, her eyes calm, but behind them burned the weight of what had just happened. "They were stronger than we imagined," said a young officer, voice trembling. "Even the remnants, we erased half their fleet." Rhea shook her head. "They underestimated us. They thought we were extinct, powerless dust. But they never knew what humanity could become." Across the galaxy, the surviving Zarth ships tried to regroup. Admiral Threx and his command vessel drifted through the emptiness, powerless. Every attempt to communicate with distant fleets failed. Energy systems were fried, sensors burned, weapons useless. Threx slumped in his command chair, staring into the void. "We were warned," he muttered. "And still, we ignored it." A younger officer stepped forward hesitantly. "Admiral, They're leaving. The human fleet, it's disappearing into hyperspace. Threx clenched his claws. Disappearing, or gathering? Meanwhile, near the edge of the solar system, the human fleet regrouped in silent formation. Black dreadnoughts floated like mountains in space, their surfaces reflecting distant stars. Rhea's voice echoed calmly over the bridge. We didn't come here to annihilate them completely. We only wanted to remind the galaxy that humans are not to be underestimated. She paused, looking at her officers. But the Dominion underestimated the consequences of their arrogance. They thought we were gone. They called us weak. And now, they will remember. In the remnants of the Zarth fleet, panic reigned. Ships drifted aimlessly. Their commanders attempted to contact other empires, the ones that had secretly allied with the Dominion. But all transmissions returned only static. Then one of Threx's officers reported a strange reading. Admiral, sensors detect something. Energy, enormous energy moving toward us from beyond the outer systems. Threx's eyes narrowed. From where? The officer shook his head. I don't know. Something human. Something bigger than any fleet we've ever seen. Threx's claws clenched. It cannot be, they already left. Back on Earth, Rhea and her team observed the galaxy carefully. Their superweapon had done more than erase the Dominion fleet. It had left an imprint across hyperspace, a warning signal detectable by any who dared to enter human-controlled space. Did we do too much? Asked one officer. Rhea shook her head. No. This is what we needed. Humanity doesn't seek war. But we will defend ourselves. And now the galaxy knows it. She tapped a button, sending a message encoded across light years. We never sought war. But if any species dares to threaten humanity again, remember this. Dust under our engines is not what we are. It is what we leave behind for those who attack us. The camera of their holomap shifted to the remaining Dominion vessels. Threx looked at his officers, pale and broken. Prepare a distress signal, he said quietly. Send it to every empire. Tell them, a humanity is awake. The young officer hesitated. Do you think they'll believe us? Threx swallowed. They will. Or they will die trying. In the farthest reaches of the galaxy, unknown eyes watched the events unfold. Stars flickered strangely, and distant planets trembled as if sensing the human return. The humans had not only destroyed fleets, they had changed the balance of power forever. The galaxy had always mocked humanity. They had thought humans were weak, extinct, and irrelevant. But now they understood the truth. Humanity was patient, silent, and calculating. They waited for the right moment. And when they acted, nothing could stop them. Back on Earth, Rhea stood alone for a moment, gazing at the hollow map of the stars. Her voice was calm but filled with resolve. We showed the galaxy our strength. We did not seek conquest. We did not seek revenge. But we will protect what is ours, no matter the cost. And somewhere in the void, the black dreadnoughts floated silently, their weapons powered, their engines ready. Humanity had returned, not as dust, not as myths, not as legends. They had returned as the force the galaxy had forgotten, a shadow in the stars, and a promise no one would ignore again. The war had ended, but the message was clear. Humanity speaks. Humanity decides. Humanity watches. The galaxy would never forget.